Can you believe I nearly became financially responsible for a car I didn't even want, bought by my completely irresponsible brother? It was the ultimate betrayal after years of me literally keeping our family afloat, and it pushed me to a breaking point I never knew I had. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah. I'm 27, and for the last few years, my life has been one long balancing act, holding my family together. This isn't just some random story, it's the raw truth of what happens when you give everything only to be taken for granted. This has been a long time coming, and I can't hold it in any longer. It all started when I was 22. My dad lost his job, the factory shut down, and it was like an avalanche. Suddenly, my mom, who'd always worked part-time, was diagnosed with an illness that made working impossible. As the oldest, I stepped up. Initially, it was just small stuff, helping with rent, covering some medical bills. But that burden grew heavy fast. I ended up working 3 jobs, just to keep us from drowning. Dad couldn't find work, and Mom's health kept her from contributing. I did it all without a word of complaint. I was the responsible one, you know? I believed it was my job to keep our family from falling apart. I sacrificed sleep, my social life, even my own health at times, just to keep the wheels turning. It was incredibly hard, but it felt like the right thing to do. But then there's Kevin, my brother. He's 24 now, and honestly, for as long as I can remember, he's been the baby of the family. Not in a cute way either. He's the kind of guy who just expects everyone to do everything for him, without lifting a single finger in return. He dropped out of college years ago, claiming it wasn't for him. But instead of doing anything productive, he just existed. He never got a job, never helped around the house. He never seemed to care that I was working myself into the ground just to pay our bills. I'd come home from a grueling 12-hour shift and find him sprawled on the couch, playing video games, or out with his friends. The nerve! When I'd ask him about getting a job, his answers were always the same. I'm taking a break, or, the economy's tough right now. And my parents? They never saw an issue. They didn't push him because they were wrapped up in their own problems. And frankly, it was easier for them to just let me handle it. It was always, Sarah will take care of it. But a few months ago, Kevin took it too far. I was already stretched thin, barely keeping my head above water with 4 jobs. One day, I dragged myself home after a brutal 16-hour shift, utterly exhausted. I saw Kevin sitting at the kitchen table, a smug look on his face. My gut clenched. Something was off. I asked him what was going on. He didn't answer right away, just kept scrolling on his phone. Finally, he looked up. "I need you to help me out," he said casually. "I bought a new car, and I need you to pay for it." My heart stopped. A new car? Was he out of his mind? "Kevin, are you serious?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, then rising in frustration. "You don't even have a job. How did you buy a car? And why on earth would I pay for it?" He just shrugged like it was nothing. "I took out a loan for it. It's a good deal. I've been needing a car, and I'm not going to keep waiting around for someone to do everything for me." I was beyond speechless. "You took out a loan, Kevin? That's insane. You don't have a job, and you're asking me to pay for your loan? You need to be responsible. I've been working myself to the bone, and you're just blowing money on things you don't need." His expression shifted, turning defensive. "I'm not asking you for a handout. You're my sister. I know you have the money, so just pay it off. I'll pay you back, I swear." "You think I have money to spare?" I snapped. "I've been covering for this family, doing everything I can, and you just sit around doing nothing. You don't have a job, and now you want me to pay for your car loan? No, Kevin. This is too far." But of course, no wasn't an answer he understood. He started arguing, calling me selfish, accusing me of being bitter because I was too busy to care about his life choices. He actually told me he was trying to be independent by buying the car and that if I cared at all, I'd help him. I stood my ground, but it was like talking to a brick wall. His sense of entitlement was absolutely maddening. "Sarah, you always act like you're the one who has it hardest," he sneered. "I get it, you work hard, but I'm trying to better myself. You can't just keep holding me back." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How had it come to this? I'd sacrificed so much for my family, put my own dreams on hold, and this was how he treated me? Expecting me to fix his messes like I was his personal Aiden? I left the kitchen that night, my head spinning. I was done. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. The next day, I had to go to work. But before I left, I told my parents about Kevin's loan. I figured they'd see how outrageous it was, maybe help me convince him to be responsible. But to my utter shock, they sided with him. "Sarah, you should help him out," my mom said, sounding tired. "He's trying. He wants to be independent, and you know how tough things are for him right now." My dad chimed in, "You can't just turn your back on family. You have the money, so why not just help?" I was floored. These were my parents. The same ones who'd relied on me for years, the ones I'd helped without hesitation. And now they were asking me to enable Kevin's irresponsible behavior? I was furious. I left the house that morning with my mind made up. I was done. No more. I wasn't going to let Kevin drain me financially and emotionally. I wasn't going to keep paying for their mistakes. So I stopped. I didn't give them a penny. I stopped paying the rent, the bills, even helping with groceries. It felt cold, harsh, but honestly, I didn't care. I had been taken advantage of for too long. This morning, I woke up to 30 missed calls. My stomach sank. I knew exactly what this was about. They must have finally realized I wasn't backing down. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, before dialing my mom's number. It rang twice before she picked up, her voice frantic. "Sarah, where have you been? Why aren't you answering your phone? Kevin is furious, and we need to talk about this." I felt the anger surge, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Mom, I've been at work all day, like I have been for the past 5 years. I told you I wasn't going to help Kevin with his car loan, and I'm not changing my mind." There was a long pause. "But Sarah, you don't understand. Kevin is trying so hard. He's going to pay it back. We just need a little time." "Time?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "How much more time do you think he needs? He's 24 years old. He's acting like he's still a teenager. He has no job, no responsibility, and he's depending on me to clean up his messes. It's not my job to bail him out every time he makes a stupid decision." "Well, you're his sister," my mom protested. "You're supposed to be there for him. You've always been the one to help. Why are you turning your back on him now?" "Because I'm not enabling him anymore," I said, my voice firm. "I've been working my ass off for years, putting myself last, while Kevin gets to do whatever he wants. He needs to learn that life doesn't work like that. He needs to take responsibility. He needs to get a job, like everyone else." Another long silence. I could hear my mom's soft, disappointed sigh. "I don't know what happened to you, Sarah. You used to be so kind, so willing to help. Now you're just cold." A pang of guilt shot through me, but it quickly faded as I reminded myself of everything I had sacrificed. "I'm not being cold, Mom. I'm being practical. I've been helping this family for years, and it's time for Kevin to start growing up. I'm not going to keep carrying him." "You'll regret this," my mom said, her voice breaking slightly. "He's family. You can't just walk away from family." "I'm not walking away, Mom," I said, my voice quieter but still resolute. "But I'm not going to keep paying for Kevin's mistakes. I can't do it anymore. He needs to get a job. He needs to face the consequences of his actions. If he wants to be treated like an adult, he needs to start acting like one." The conversation ended in silence. I didn't feel satisfied, but I knew I had said everything I needed to. I was done. The ball was in their court now. I spent the next few days working as usual, ignoring the constant texts and calls from both my parents and Kevin. It wasn't easy. I felt guilty at times, but I reminded myself that I was doing what was best for everyone in the long run. Kevin needed to hit rock bottom so that he could finally realize he couldn't keep depending on me forever. Maybe, just maybe, he would finally understand that life didn't owe him anything. A few days later, I got a text from my mom. One that left me feeling utterly cold. Sarah, Kevin went to the bank today and took out a second loan. He's putting the car in your name. He says it's your responsibility now. You need to pay up. You owe him. My heart stopped. This couldn't be real, could it? I read the message over and over, thinking I had misinterpreted it. But no, it was as bad as it sounded. Kevin had actually gone to the bank and put the car in my name, without even asking. Without even consulting me. This was beyond ridiculous. This was the ultimate betrayal. I didn't waste any time. I called the bank, and after explaining the situation, they confirmed it. Kevin had indeed taken out another loan and was attempting to transfer the car loan into my name. They told me that as the co-signer on the loan, I was legally responsible for the payments unless I could prove I hadn't agreed to it. My stomach twisted with anger and frustration. I couldn't believe Kevin had done this. I had told him no so many times, and he just ignored me. It wasn't just irresponsible, it was manipulative. He knew I had always been the one to step up and help, and now he was trying to trap me into paying for his bad choices. I texted back, furious, "You think I'm going to pay for this, Kevin? You've gone too far. I am not covering your loan. This is not my responsibility. If you want that car, you're going to have to figure it out on your own." His response came almost immediately, "You're my sister, Sarah. You've always helped me before. You can't just leave me hanging now. I didn't do anything wrong. You took out a loan without asking me and now you're trying to put it in my name? That's not just irresponsible, it's illegal." I felt the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. He was crossing a line that shouldn't be crossed. I had spent the last few years sacrificing everything for this family, and this was the thanks I got? Manipulated and lied to? The next day, I went to the bank in person and started the process of removing myself from the loan. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and it would take time, but I was determined to make sure Kevin couldn't use me as his safety net any longer. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. That evening, I received a call from Kevin. This time, his voice sounded different, desperate. "Sarah, please. You have to help me. I've messed up so bad. I'm not sure what to do. I really need you. Please." I paused, my finger hovering over the phone. I could feel the guilt creeping in again, but I knew deep down that I couldn't go back. Not this time. "I'm sorry, Kevin," I said, my voice steady. "You need to take responsibility for your own mistakes. I'm not bailing you out anymore. It's time for you to grow up." And that's when I heard it, the sound of Kevin's voice cracking. It was the first time I had ever heard him sound so vulnerable, so human. For a brief second, I almost faltered. But I stayed firm. "I'm done," I said. "You need to get a job. You need to figure this out on your own." I hung up the phone and felt an overwhelming mix of emotions. It wasn't easy. It was heartbreaking. But I knew it was the right thing to do. That night as I lay in bed, I stared at my phone, waiting. The missed calls, the texts, my phone had been buzzing all night, and I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my stomach. I had expected some reaction, but this was different. I got out of bed, trying to shake off the anxiety crawling up my spine. I opened the blinds. Everything seemed peaceful, too peaceful. It was too early for drama, but I knew it was coming. The doorbell rang. Its sharp tone echoed through the quiet house. My heart skipped a beat. I rushed to the front window. There they were. Kevin, of course, but my parents were with him, standing together in the driveway, looking up at the house with angry, expectant eyes. I knew exactly what this was about. I took a deep breath and made my way to the door, my mind racing. What were they planning? Did they seriously think they could just show up at my door, demanding money, after everything that had happened? I opened the door, and before I could even say anything, Kevin stormed in, pushing past me like he owned the place. My mom and dad followed closely behind, their faces set in that familiar, judgmental frown. "Sarah," my mom began, her voice tight. "You have to help Kevin. You promised." "I didn't promise anything." I shot back, my anger bubbling to the surface. "I told you both that I wasn't going to keep bailing him out. You can't just come here and demand that I pay for his irresponsibility." Kevin's face reddened. He crossed his arms. "You think you can just walk away from family like this? Yomi, you promised me you would help." I shook my head, incredulous. "You're a grown man, Kevin. You're 24 years old, and you've never had to work a day in your life. You've always been able to rely on me, but that ends now. You're not going to guilt me into paying off your car loan because you're too lazy to get a job." "I don't have time for this." Kevin growled. "You're supposed to help me. You said you would." My dad stepped forward, his face hard. "Sarah, don't be ridiculous. You know Kevin is going through a rough patch. You can afford to help him. He can pay it back over time, but you need to start now." I was floored. My dad, the same person who had spent years telling me that my money was my money, now wanted me to pay for Kevin's stupid decision? It was like they'd forgotten the countless hours I spent working multiple jobs just to keep food on the table for everyone. "You know what?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've had it. I've been helping you all for years, and it's never enough. You take and take and take, and when I say no, you come to my door like this." Kevin let out a harsh laugh, clearly growing more frustrated. "You think you can just refuse to help your family? You've always been so selfish, Sarah. It's your fault we're in this mess. You never even tried to help me get ahead. I thought you cared about me." My stomach churned at the blatant guilt trip, but I wasn't falling for it. I had seen this game before. "You want to know the truth?" I said, my voice growing louder with each word. "You don't get to talk to me like that. I've spent years helping everyone out while you sat on your ass doing nothing. You've never cared about what it takes to build something for yourself. You've never once considered what it takes for me to actually work hard to keep us afloat. You don't appreciate anything I've done. You've never taken responsibility for your actions." Kevin's face twisted with rage. "I don't have to listen to this. You're just jealous because you're stuck in your dead-end job while I'm out here trying to enjoy life." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He had the audacity to say that to me, after everything I'd sacrificed, after all the hours I'd worked, all the times I had pulled him out of trouble? "I'm done," I said, finally finding my voice, clear and cold. "I'm not paying for the car. I'm not helping you anymore. And you know what? You're not welcome here. I need you to leave. Now." The shock on their faces was palpable. For a moment, no one said anything. My mom's mouth opened and closed like she was trying to find the words, but nothing came out. Kevin just stood there, seething, fists clenched at his sides. Finally, my dad spoke, his voice low and harsh. "You're making a big mistake, Sarah. You don't know what you're doing. You think you can just turn your back on your family like this, but I promise you, it's not going to end well. You'll regret this." I shook my head, my hand trembling with the pent-up frustration of years of dealing with this nonsense. "I'm not the one making a mistake. You're enabling him. You're teaching him that he can get away with this behavior, and I won't be a part of it anymore." Without waiting for a response, I slammed the door in their faces. I stood there for a few seconds, my heart pounding, trying to process everything that had just happened. The confrontation with my parents and Kevin felt like it had been building for years, and now that it was over, I wasn't sure whether I should feel relieved or just utterly exhausted. I took a few deep breaths. The silence in the house was almost deafening. I could still hear the muffled sound of Kevin and my parents arguing outside, but I didn't care anymore. I was done. I was done letting them guilt-trip me into paying for things I didn't want to pay for. Done enabling Kevin's laziness. Done putting myself last for the sake of their constant demands. I went back inside, locked the door, and collapsed onto the couch. The weight of it all started to hit me in waves. For years, I had been the one to carry the financial burden of the family. My parents had never really acknowledged it, and Kevin had always found new ways to make me feel like I was in the wrong for not doing enough. But no more. I could feel a mixture of relief and guilt gnawing at me. On one hand, I knew this was the right decision. It had to be. I had been suffocating under the pressure of their expectations for so long, always bending over backward to help them out, always putting my own life and well-being on hold. I couldn't keep doing that. I wasn't a bank, and I certainly wasn't a free ride for anyone. But on the other hand, the guilt was there. My parents had been counting on me, and Kevin, well, he was my brother. I didn't want to cut him off completely, but I had to make him face the consequences of his actions. He needed to learn that there were limits, real consequences for irresponsible choices. I wasn't going to keep paying for his mistakes. I sat there for a while, trying to make sense of it all. Then I glanced at my phone. There were already a handful of missed calls and texts, most of them from my mom and dad. Kevin had gone silent, which, knowing him, was probably a good thing. I couldn't bring myself to reply yet, not after everything that had just gone down. But I knew I'd have to face them eventually. They wouldn't stop until I did. And honestly, I wasn't sure how I'd handle it when that time came. For now, though, I felt like I had taken a stand. This was my life, and it was time I started living it for myself. I had spent too long trying to please everyone else, putting their needs ahead of my own, and it wasn't getting me anywhere. My parents could keep their entitled attitudes, and Kevin could keep his self-destructive behavior, but I was going to do things differently from now on. So, here I am, trying to move forward, trying to make sense of everything. But I still wonder, did I do the right thing? Should I have helped them out just one last time? Or was this the only way for me to finally break free from their constant demands? I'm curious to hear what others think. Have any of you been in a similar situation? How did you handle it? Did you ever have to make a tough decision about cutting ties with family or standing your ground when they pushed too far? Let me know your thoughts. I could really use some advice.